Hey team, welcome to the Wild Podcast, brought to you by Team CP your endurance coaching specialists. Let's go wild in the mountains tonight. Pretty fired up about tonight's show. We're super stoked to be chatting with two men with massive mountain running CVs. Mel Law, creator and event director of the Wild, and Tim Sutton, one of the event's ambassadors for 2024. What these two guys don't know about mountain running and the places they've explored on foot really isn't worth knowing about. So it's really looking forward to having a chat with both of them. So Mel, for a start, is probably best known for his High 50 challenge, an attempt to run 50 mountain marathons over 50 peaks in 50 days. You might have seen it. There was a pop-up channel on Sky there for a little while. There was a pretty awesome documentary that was made of that, and he raised over $500,000 for the Mental Health Foundation, and is also a founder of the Wild Things trail running page as well. Tim is a legend in his own backyard, and that being the ferocious Tararua Range up north of Wellington, whereas the unique distinction of finishing all three versions of the 3 SK traverses in under 24 hours. So looking forward to having a chat about what that is about as well. We'll be yarning to these two giants of the sport, their passion for exploring wild places on foot, and more specifically about the wild and what it takes to prepare yourself for the trail running and the epic courses that this event offers, happening in December this year. What do you reckon, Grant? Does that fire you up?
Yeah, mate. Real keen to catch up with Mel and hear all about the wild and how that's developing, and as well as Tim, hearing about the Tararuas.
Oh, good. So great, guys. Also, Team CP coach, you've done a bit of running and ultra running and exploring and adventuring in the past as well. Have you? Last year was the Wild's inaugural year. Have you done much exploring down around the Arrowtown sort of back country down there?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't run the wild. I was sitting around with a broken leg at that time, but I've ran around Arrowtown and mountain bikes like the Coronet Peak Loop. I've backcountry skied around Coronet Peak and Mount Dura, which the wild course goes over, and then ran the Motatapu event and in behind Arrowtown. So yeah, a little bit familiar with some of it, but definitely not all of the terrain. But it's a good bit of country for sure.
100%. And we'll get into it more as we go, but just looking at the courses and a bit of the pre-event video, the ridge lines is what this event is all about. And you obviously have experience of getting up and over some of those and the views and everything that's involved in running along that sort of narrow ridgeline type path. That's pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular back there, especially you're right next to Queenstown, which is this crazy, just madhouse of a tourist destination. And it's like you go one ridge removed or two ridges removed over in those valleys, and there's no one. You're just like out in this crazy backcountry pretty
Mhm.
quickly. So it's pretty unique that you can be starting and finishing in a place like Arrowtown, which is quite densely populated, and just be out. I mean, I don't think there's any pavement on the whole 85K course or any of the distances. It's all off trail, or sorry, all on trails, or off trail, no road, and
Mm.
out in the backcountry for the whole time. So it's pretty cool spot, pretty unique event from that perspective.
Nice. And you yourself, so as I say, you've done lots of exploring, adventuring, and running to a high level, and ultra running to an extremely high level as well. You've unfortunately just found mountain biking, and that's bitten you, you'd have to say, with a couple of injuries and things. I heard a rumor that you were getting back out jogging last week. Will that mean that you might head down and potentially go for a trot around one of the wild courses later on in the year?
Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty fun to do. Especially with my whopping, I think, 15K I ran last week with probably, I don't know, about 30 meters of vertical.
It's a start, Grant. It's
It
a
was over
start.
3 runs too. So yeah, it's definitely a comeback. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I could feel my quads earlier in the week. It's pretty interesting coming back from an injury, and then just that little amount, you realize how good you had it when you're running a lot, I guess, and
Yeah, that's right.
how you need to ease back into it. So yeah.
And just before we get to Mel, what are your thoughts like in terms of where we're at now? We're in July. There's about 5 months to the event itself. Is that long enough as a coach from your perspective to actually be ready for an event like this with the amount of elevation, how tough this event is?
Yeah, well, it would all come back to, I guess it would depend if you're off the couch and you wanted to run like the V5000, like that's going to be a pretty big ask.
Mm.
But if you're you've done, you've got a bit of a base, a bit of a background, and whether it's running or hiking or biking something, and you want to do, say, the V 1600, like the
Mm-hmm.
30K, there's a lot of things that depend within that. But yeah, for sure. I mean, 5 months is time to work into it. It's all dependent on what your goals and your expectations are, and
Good. Yeah.
your background. But yeah, it's definitely enough time to work into that for sure. We've got some, or I've got someone at the moment that's training up for the 30K. With a decent background, so it's like super super big goal, but super achievable too for that person.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sweet spot, I guess, of it's very achievable for them, but it's still like going to be a big ask.
Mm,
So it makes it like a really fun challenge for both me as a coach and the athlete.
that's
So
right.
yeah, no, I think 5 months definitely is, but the clock is ticking. So yeah,
There we go. We'll look forward to
have,
seeing if
have to get
Grant.
those entries in.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I like your point there about expectations. And one of the, like, what are your goals? How much are you going to run? How much are you going to walk? But also, this event has the crazy, long, massive mission, but it also has those shorter, let's go and challenge myself to my level as well, which is pretty cool with the wild too.
Yeah, and
So,
when I look at that, you're looking like, okay, what are the distances? What's all this? I'm just like, man, that 30K, like that's where it's at. Like I think that's such a fun distance, and
yeah.
I think a lot of people can get caught up in like 100 miles or 50 miles, the really big thing. But man, that 20, 30, 40K, it's such a fun
Mhm.
distance, and I think it can often get overlooked, and that's where yeah, I think you can have a really good day out and get all those experiences that you're looking for, and that you might get in like the 80K.
That's right.
But it's a fun distance, and it is a big goal, but it still is achievable. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
that it's
I don't
that
know, I,
whole
I I think don't look over that.
I can work hard, I can race, I can challenge myself, and I can still be useful at the finish line. I can sit down and enjoy a beer and a bowl of chips at the finish line rather than being carted
Yeah,
off
yeah,
and
I
sort of
guess
put in bed.
yeah, and maybe my perspective is done that because I've shifted. Like if I went down to a race like this now, I'd probably, I might be down there with my family, and I'm like, well, I can't actually be away for 12, or
Mm,
if I'm away for 12 hours, then I'm worthless for the next 2 days. Like that, it's not much fun. So yeah, it changes a little bit, I guess. The goals, or what you're thinking of trying to achieve. But yeah, it's easy to get tied up on the big marquee distance
yep.
when like you can have a lot of fun with those shorter distances.
Mm,
So
bigger, bigger,
um,
bigger isn't always better, is it? Like we need to sort of, and over time we find that sweet spot, but it's good to explore what those boundaries are, and that's what this event
yeah,
is all
yeah,
about.
and
Yep.
yeah, and that's what I love about a race like this, where you have like, I mean, it doesn't matter what distance. The 30K is still like it's pretty full on. One, because of the altitude, the amount of climbing, and the terrain it's on is it's super demanding. It's still going to be a really tough event, but it's got those events to cater to, some ambitious young up and comer that wants to smash out that like 80K with all that vertical, to like the washed up old men like myself that just want to
That's right.
have a good time down in Arrowtown and run 30K. So yeah,
Nice.
it's yeah, it's
That's right. Well,
everywhere in
let's
between.
not talk too much about washed up old men. Let's go and
No,
have a
no,
chat to Mel Law, who is the
let's
event
talk to one.
director, the
Who is a
person that.
washed up old man? Yeah.
Yeah, oh, look at that. We were
that
just talking about you, Mal.
is that
Yeah.
a right throw to that?
Just
I'm sorry about that, Mel.
that was a very very nicely segued into introducing the old part. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mel, do you want to give us a better introduction? Like, give us a bit of a background of what you've done in the past, how the wild come about, and yeah, your mountain running background, adventuring. Tell us about that, the High 50 challenge as well.
Oh lordy. Okay, I'll try and keep this reasonably brief because, but yeah, I mean, I've been roaming around mountains and wild places ever since I was a nipper. I was introduced to it all by my dad, who was a very keen hill walker, as they're called in Scotland. So I was dragged up peaks from an early age, usually kicking and screaming and moaning, and then became a recreational hiker, mountain biker. When I moved to New Zealand, I discovered, the whole joy of going overnight into the mountains, which was all new to me. That morphed into endurance sports, and I spent 10 years doing the old multisport thing, racing coast to coast. I think my last coast to coast, actually, Rich, was the same year that you did it. Well, you've done it several times, but I know we did it the same year. I found our names on the same result sheet.
Good. Was that 2002 or 2000? Where were we at?
2001. I did it in 99 and 2001.
That was my first, and was that your last? Was it?
That was my last. Yeah.
Good job. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think I got fourth vet that year, but I went through the results very carefully and found that I was actually the top placed North Island vet.
Okay, well that's definitely something.
You've got to filter these results as finely as required. Yeah. Anyway, so from
Strava filtering.
Yeah, exactly. So from multisport, I kind of accidentally became a long distance runner. In multisport, probably the furthest I ever ran was probably on coast to coast, like 27K. It was about a bigger run as I ever did. And I thought the whole notion of someone running like 60K at the Kepler or something was just mental. But then 2009, the idea of running New Zealand's Great Walks back to back somehow popped into my head. Had some spare time. I thought, well, what the heck? Let's go and have a challenge. So I went off and did that, and that's what really gave me the long distance running bug. So from that, I did a couple of versions of that 7 and 7 challenge, raised $250,000 for the Leukemia Foundation doing that. And then got into the genuinely sick stuff. 2012, I attempted an FKT run around the Southwest Coast Path in the UK, which is over 1,000 kilometers. Took longer than expected, but still managed to climb an FKT, which lasted not very long at all before people came along and actually started setting decent times on it. It was a very, very soft one. That
that's good. So to FKT, fastest known time for those who are just listening to this, and I guess that's that Strava crown hunting, isn't it? You just got to get a little bit more and more off the beaten track to be able to claim that particular crown. So you've done well choosing that one for a start. I'll claim it.
Yeah, but my first love has always been mountains and climbing peaks and getting to the top of things, and staying high on ridge lines for as long as possible. So the High 5.0 was really about combining my new love of long distance trail running with my old love of bagging peaks, and trying to do them all in one big adventure of 50 peaks, 50 mountain marathons, and 50 days all around New Zealand. Which, as you pointed out in the intro, we had, that project raised over $500,000 to the Mental Health Foundation, but that was largely down to the fact that we had 300 support runners join me at one stage or another, and every one of those was responsible for doing some fundraising as well. So very much a team effort. But yeah, look, my background is all about mountains. It's about peaks. It's about wild places. And so when the time came, I spent years and years and years denying I'd ever get into event management or putting on events, but inevitably it happened. And when the idea for putting on an event came to me, it was only ever going to be a genuine mountain running event. It wasn't going to be a softy run on the flat, on gravel paths. It was going to be on proper terrain, and something a little on the wild side. So yeah,
nice.
Try to keep that as potted and succinct as possible.
Yeah, good job, good job. So tell us a little bit about those courses. Oh, and actually, if you're listening to this and watching this at the moment live, which we're out live at the moment, if you've got a question, feel free to type that in as we go, because Mel is obviously a bit of a legend and great to be able to talk to, but he'll come in at the end of the show. So if there's anything else that sort of pops up or you'd like to know about, definitely throw it in the comments as we go. So tell us about those courses, Mel. Tell us about, I want to first of all find out about that easiest one. As you mentioned, you don't want it to make it like you want a bit of wild, you want a bit of out there and finding some ridge lines, but what's the sort of intro type event that you've got on the cards, on the menu for those sort of getting into this?
Well, yeah, everyone kept telling me when we were setting this event up that, look, you need some shorter distances because not everyone wants to run ultras in the mountains. Other event organizers were saying, our best seller is always the 10K, and it's the easy course, and that's where you get your numbers, and that helps pay for everything else. And I was like, okay, well, I can put a short course on, but they're not going to get a flat one. It's just, it's so off brand. The whole idea of the wild is you have a slightly wild experience and you go into the mountains. Yep. So the simplest course, it may only be 9K, but it involves a 500-meter climb non-stop from Arrowtown to the top of a peak, and then a really gnarly descent. And then
so there's going to be some swearing and cursing with your name in it, I'd imagine, for those
well,
people.
I failed if people don't swear mine. If someone curses my name, I fail completely. But that we do that one. That's the Beast of Beetham. We do that actually on the Friday afternoon because it's a multi-day kind of event, the Wild, and that's quite fun because we do it as a time trial. So it's not everyone starts at the same time. We set people off at 20-second intervals. It's like Tour de France starts with a time trial, so we thought we could do that, can't we?
Yeah, good.
And it's a really good format. People just go off and chase the person in front and try and stay ahead of the person behind.
Yeah.
So that's a good bit of fun on the Friday afternoon. And the nice thing again with that is by having it on the Friday afternoon, we found that last year we had a lot of couples coming down, maybe with kids in tow, and one wanted to run something big on the Saturday, and this gave a chance for the partner to do something themselves on the Friday. Well, hubby who's going to be or wife who's going to be running the big one the next day is looking after the kids for them.
Perfect.
So
that's great.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah. So that's as easy as it gets. I think the winning time last year was pretty insane. Actually, it was about 45 minutes, which I figured was pretty hot for the course
the 500
itself.
Vertical meters. Also, as we're preparing for this, we sort of talked about giving people an understanding about what these events are about. But we also need to, like you say, 45 minutes, and that's what we get in our head. 45 minutes. It'll take about that, maybe a few minutes more. But what was the average time, Mel? What are most people kind of taking for that 9Ks?
Most people are taking about an hour and a quarter, somewhere around there.
Right. Yeah, 75 minutes ish.
Yeah.
Which is still super impressive.
I think it was like there you go. We've actually put these on the event website. We've got the median times from last year. The median time for men was 1:03, and the median time for women was 1:37. There you go.
Okay, that's impressive. Yeah, good. Okay, right. That's a good start. All right.
Average for 2 hours, about an hour and a quarter.
Yeah, good one. So you've got, how many different events have you got, Mel?
We've got 5 in total. So we've got that one on the Friday afternoon. And then on the Saturday, we've got 4, all starting and finishing at the same place. So we've got the one nice event village at Butler's Green in Arrowtown, next to the Chinese village. It's all set up to go from there, and all the courses start and finish there. So there's none. Logistically, it's really easy, and you've got all the facilities of Arrowtown right immediately behind the event village. So cafes, the pubs.
Do they all start together at the same time, or they all staggered start with everyone sort of viewing to finish it about the same time? How you sort of set it up?
No, they all start separately, and there's a very wide range. The finish line is going for many hours because the shortest course, is the shortest Saturday course is significantly less time out there than the people that are running like the V5000 who have up to 24 hours to finish. So
right. Yes. Okay. So tell us. So what have we got? So you got the 9K. What's next after that?
Then we've got an 11K, but
11K, yep.
before you get excited about, oh, sounds like a nice little trot, it does go straight up Brow Peak, which is a 1,000-meter climb. So it's essentially a VK, except you don't get to stop running at the top of the vertical kilometer. You've also got to run down.
Okay, right. So
you don't finish at the top of the mountain. You finish when you get back down.
Right. Okay. So it's got to be straight up and then straight back down again to do that.
Yeah, there's like about a kilometer of flat at the bottom where you get a little warmer, and then you start climbing. And I love it because it goes up. It goes the main part of the climb goes up a really lovely spur of Brow Peak. Which is the trail is just a beautifully naturally trod trail. It's pretty faint in places, but there's not an ounce of dock gravel to be seen anywhere. It's just the trail is being made by sheep and by people, and that's what you're following all the way up this beautiful mountain for these amazing views, along the ridgeline a little bit, and then down another spur, which is kind of a bit technical. That the good downhill runners can really get some pace on down there.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. Okay, so we've got that one. So that's what 11Ks. What do we got after that?
So then we've got the one that Grant was shaping up for, the V1600, 30K.
30Ks.
You dead right, Grant. It's where it's at. Like if I was doing this run, I'd be doing the V1600. Once upon a time, I thought the longer the better, but there are so many good runs you can do that don't take all day, that all leave you broken for weeks afterwards. And the V60, I've said to everybody that's ever asked me, if we had never even, this all started as an ultra concept, but if we'd never had the idea of trying to find long distance courses in these mountains, and we'd come across the idea of this course, we'd have put it on as an event in its own right anyway, because it is, I think, kilometer for kilometer, it's got to be one of the best runs in the Southern Hemisphere, let alone New Zealand. It is phenomenal. 90% single track, a real good mix of types of single track, from pretty cruisy to some really good technical ridge running, to some steep downhill, to some beautiful flowing track through the valley to get back down to Arrowtown. And it's a lovely loop. Yep.
Brilliant. One of the things around like these ridges that you're running, for me, like I ride my mountain bike as well, and I get frustrated when I'm out on a run. It's like, I could probably ride my mountain bike on this, but it's not that on these courses at all. It's technical, and it's up in the middle of mountains, in the middle of nowhere, sort of thing. And you're exploring and adventuring, aren't you, on foot?
Yeah, I can vouch for. I have never seen a mountain bike on that ridge. I hope I never do. If I do, I'll probably see a very broken rider as well very soon afterwards, I think.
Good.
Look,
okay,
you say it's out in the middle of nowhere. The ridge line that goes from Brow Peak to Coronet Peak, which is on all three of the V courses on Saturday. It's the first 20K they have in common. It's awesome, as Grant says. On the one hand, you're looking down on civilization, Arrowtown, Queenstown, the remarks in the distance. So it's pretty gobsmacking view, but it's civilization. And then you swivel your head the other way, and you're looking deep into the backcountry. It's where the V5000 course goes, and it's just mountains and emptiness. There's not a dwelling in sight. So you certainly gives that V1600 really gives the feeling of getting remote and backcountry without ever having to really go backcountry. It's amazing.
Yep, excellent. So V16,000, and next we're going to the V3000. Is that correct?
V3000, yeah. Which so they're all named after the amount of ascent in it. I figured, if you're having mountain runs, let's use the vert is what it's all about. So let's use the vert in the title of these things.
That's what makes it honest.
Yeah, so it's 3,000 meters and of climb over 64K. And we put this one in to satisfy the ultra trail runner who actually likes to run on trail, who likes to open the legs a little bit and get a good old canter going, because you've got that ridge line that we've talked about where it is pretty technical in places, but other than that, it's pretty smooth mellow. Well, I wouldn't say mellow because there's plenty of hills in it still, but it's very runnable. I would say that that course for a good runner is 99.5% runnable for a strong runner. And that also.
Oh, sorry. How long is it kind of taking people? What was the winning times for that, the V3000? What are we looking at there? Ish.
I meant to get this all on hand, didn't I, before the show started?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Can I come?
How
I'll
long
come back
did
to
you
you
feel
on
like
that
you're waiting at the finish line, Phil Mel?
Well, the range of times was huge. Yeah, I think the winning time, Virgin Armstrong won it in, I think it was around 6 or 7 hours, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we're going to estimate
a
a lot of people are going to come in around about that 10-hour type mark.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
It's majority on the Coronet Peak loop, Mel, that one.
Yeah, so that does use a lot of the Coronet Loop track, the mountain bike track.
That starts with the ascent of Brow Peak. So super.
It starts with the ascent of Brow Peak,
Yeah.
all the way along the ridgeline to Coronet Peak, then drops down onto the Coronet Loop track, and then largely sticks on the Coronet Loop track back to Arrowtown. We take you off again at the end just to throw in another couple of hills just to keep you honest. But yeah, so it's of all the courses, the V1600 and the V3000 are both predominantly runnable.
Yeah. Okay.
For the good runners.
Nice. Okay, so we talked a lot about running so far.
Except for that vertical K at the start.
Yeah.
Except for that.
It's 1K of warm up. There was a K of warm up on the flat that it was lulling you into a false sense.
Yeah, no, that's the Beast of Brow, and I would not call that totally runnable because no one's running up Brow on that. You basically do most of that 1,000 meters climb in 2K. So people are not running up Brow on the Beast of Brow. Yeah. They get to the top of Brow by the direct route. All the other courses take a much more circuitous route to get there. So it is a more gradual climb if you're doing one of the V races. Yeah. Nice. But you still got to climb 1,000 meters to get up there. Yeah.
So let's talk about 5,000 meters. How far are we running within 5 meters? 5,000 vertical meters? How long is it going to take us? What are some highlights of that epic course out in the backcountry?
So we're running 85K over 50 miles, 5,000 meters of climb. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long it's going to take because last year, on the first year, unfortunately, we had 120 kilometre-hour winds forecast. So we didn't want to send them over the most remote part of the course. I think it would have been a disaster waiting to happen if we had. Yeah. So they got short course. So we don't know. But my best guess is still that that's going to be a 12-hour winning time for a very elite level runner.
Yeah. Those that I've spoken to...
12 hours for a 50-mile. I mean, they're running Western States double the distance in only a couple of hours more than that. So gives you an idea of the kind of terrain.
Yes. Those that did it last year weren't overly upset about having to be short course slightly. They felt like for those that I spoke to, felt like they got enough out of it. It wasn't a huge short course anyway. They still did a good 70 odd Ks, I think, didn't they?
They still did 75K and 4,000 meters, but what they didn't do was the which to me is the defining part of the course, is when they leave the Coronet Loop track, cross a creek, and then they have this endless climb up Vanguard Peak, which is about a 1,300 meter climb, pretty much untracked. There's a few animal tracks to follow, and it just goes on and on and on. I've had 2 cardiac arrests on that hill, I swear. After a couple of times I've really thought I'm going to be calling a chopper before I get to the top of this thing.
It was in one run too, wasn't it?
2 separate occasions.
Okay, so you call the helicopter before you go out running, do you, Mel?
I've had one on backup these days, just in case. Not as young as I used to be. But once you get up to the Vanguard Peak, and then you are on this incredible ridge line with views right over the Shotover and into the high mountains of the Southern Alps, which still have snow on at that time of year. It's one of the reasons we chose December, so that there'd still be the vistas with the snow. And you actually come off the only time you come off the ridge line on that section is to drop down to one of the mountain Turks, the huts that have been put in a lot through the Harris Mountains there. We use one of those as an aid station. Then climb back up onto the ridge again and finish this incredible sort of horseshoe, about 10K of ridge running with these amazing views before you drop down into the back of Macetown. If for those that know it, on an old, a beautiful bit of single track comes through all these old gold mining workings, old stamping batteries and what have you. So yeah, it's for me, that is the standout part of the course, and I was really gutted when we couldn't put people over it last year. So fingers crossed this year we get the weather and that happens.
I think you've organised the weather. I've already heard about that. Actually, you've already got that booked in for this year, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I've taken control this year. Someone else was in charge last year, clearly. So I've taken it back off them. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. What's like? Is there any entry criteria to be able to sort of turn up to this, or do you just say that these are some strict cutoffs, and if you don't make it, you're out? How do you kind of manage that?
I think the main criteria is a good sense of adventure, isn't it? Like, it's seriously like we've set this up for adventurous runners, not people who want a cruisy, fast time where they know they can run at a set pace. It's it's not that kind of thing. But the only one of the events where we have set criteria is for the V5000, and that's not about I've run such and such a race in such and such a time, because it's not really about we're not that so worried about what your running CV looks like. If you want to, if you've not got much of a CV, but you want to give it a go, we'd like you to give it a go. But you need to be able to prove to us that you've got some backcountry nous. So there's an online form that people fill in, and we ask a few questions and basically just suss out people that have got the necessary nous in the backcountry, so that if the shit does hit the fan, because you're out in pretty remote country, only the one aid station out in the backcountry, that people have got the wherewithal to look after themselves. There's a bit more self-reliance in this race than in a lot of trail races. Aid stations are few and far between.
So that was my next question, actually. What support have you organised? What aid stations are out on course? How many are there of them? Support on course?
You want support?
Well, there's surely there's high fives or something going on, but is there some water out in the back of Beyond, or anybody to double check that I am still walking a straight line?
We have put in as much support as we can, given the nature of the terrain. So we've got on the V1600, there is the one aid station, which is at Hardy's Hut on Coronet Peak. It's a mountain chalet. It's a cafe on the ski field in the snow season. We take that over. It's our own. We turn it into a singing, dancing party chalet for the duration. People had the time of their lives at that aid station last year. Sally, my wife, masterminds that one with a bunch of her friends. And then on the V3000, there's two other aid stations, one down on the Skipper's Road and an old mining hut that's on the Coronet Loop track. So that's only 3 aid stations and 64K. There's just no road access, and as you said, Grant, your feet do not touch tarmac on any of these courses, except crossing the road once, crossing the Coronet Peaks access road. So maybe 6 paces on tarmac.
It is at 1,600 meters elevation. So as far as roads go in New Zealand,
it's not exactly busy. So it's one of the reasons we call it wild was it is a pretty wild experience. It's a remote experience compared to most other races that you'll do, and there is less out there in the way of support. There's plenty of streams to drink from, and we provide people with a map and let them know exactly where all those streams are. So they're all good, mountain water to drink. And then obviously at the aid stations, we've got all the usual stuff as well. So people are well looked after, and we've got a very, very thorough vetted safety plan in place. We've got helicopters on backup for evac and everything. So a ridiculous amount of work gone into that side of things. Yeah,
that's fantastic.
So very much what I'm picking up is self-sufficient for all the people that are heading out there, especially those V5000 and 3000 that are going way back. So there must be some pretty I mean, what would people's expectation? What should people be expecting as far as the self-supported side of it, Mel, and like carrying, I mean, their own safety gear and their own gear requirements? I'm guessing there's a little bit.
Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive mandatory kit list. I mean, when you're sending people up to 2,000 meters in the backcountry in New Zealand in December, you need the gear not to stay warm while running. You need the gear to stay safe when you fall over and injure yourself and you're waiting 4 hours in a freezing southerly for an evac because the choppers can't fly. I'm sure that we had
what most people don't. Most of us, and myself included, we pack for when we're running and everything's going well, right? But you got to pack for when things aren't going well, I guess.
Yeah, we had one lady pull out of last year's event because she didn't read the mandatory kit list until she'd put her entry in, and then having read it, said, "This is ridiculous. I've run in snow with less than this." And I replied very politely and said, yeah, I've run in snow in less than that. But however, have you had a broken leg and been waiting 6 hours to be evacuated in a southerly snowstorm and had and only had on what you were running in? Because I'd be surprised if you survived to tell the story if you did. So, there's well-documented incidents. There was the unfortunate thing that happened on the Southern Lakes Ultra a couple of years ago. There was that famous incident in China. We just don't want to be one of those. So much as we'd love to set people off into the mountains running with just a bum bag and a Mars bar, it would be pretty well. We wouldn't get our safety plan vetted and signed off. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right, and that's just a matter of taking responsibility for yourself, isn't it? Not expecting others to stop and give you a survival bag or an extra polypro kind of thing if you're in trouble. You're basically looking after yourself. Yeah. Mel, is there anything else that you want to sort of share around the courses? You've also flicked through your little promo video that I'm going to flick up now as well. Is there anything else to share before I throw that up?
Look, I think as I say, it's all about having an adventure. It's definitely for people who the adventurous runner. The views are just to die for. The ridge lines are to die for. There's lots of really nice runnable terrain, some beautiful valleys, beautiful rivers. It's a real celebration of mountain running at its best, I think. So
that's good. And
that sounded like a promo, didn't it? It wasn't meant to be.
And I think the key bit with this is it's your backyard. That's where you live. That's where you enjoy adventuring. That's where you enjoy exploring. And basically, come and see the places that I like. So this is my backyard, and these are my favorite places. That's really where this wild come about, and what you're trying to achieve here, isn't it?
Yeah, and the landowners, the vast majority of the area we run on is in QE2 Conservation Trust, run by Mahu Whenua, and the administrators of the land, of the trust that looks after that land, are very, very keen for people to go and explore it and enjoy it. And we're working with them with our rewilding projects to re-beautify them as well. Cool. But they are super keen to have people in there and make it really easy for people to go in there. So it's when you're battling landowners as opposed to working with enthusiastic landowners, it's a very different scenario. So we're very lucky with those landowners.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good stuff, Mel. Well, you'll come back at the end of the show if there's any other questions that pop up as we go. But let's throw this quick video up, and then we're going to have a chat to Tim as well. Hold tight, team. We'll catch up with you soon.
So running the V5000.
Today I'm doing the V3000.
I'm going to run the V1600.
I'm about to run the V5000 at the Wild.
Heading towards the top. Somewhere up there.
I chose the wild purely based on the course. I liked the idea of the terrain, the vert in it, the distance, all of that suited what I was looking for.
I'm doing the wild because I'm looking forward to the epic adventure that it's going to bring.
Really made my morning.
It just kicks right up, and then that ridgeline is just super, like, technical but runnable.
Just amazing views up there. It's really, I couldn't believe my eyes at times.
Just coming around that back, it's just so beautiful groomed trails where you just want to open up.
We want to be pioneers for this race, so yeah, no, it's good. You can only be first ones.
Bit windy, bit wet. I was a bit hot, so you know. I cannot believe just everybody is coming across the line to visit. I haven't seen one person who looks like they haven't had the time of their life.
Just like that, Grant, that gets you fired up, doesn't it?
Yeah, that ridge is pretty sweet for sure.
Absolutely. How good. That's awesome. For you, from your perspective, like we talked at the top of the show just briefly around training and things and expectations, and if you were going to line up for that, making sure that you're getting underway and getting a bit of training going. Is there any other kind of key points from your perspective as a long-time trail runner, adventurer in the outdoors that you would sort of say, hey, these are the things you need to focus on now, given there's sort of about 5 months to go until the event kicks off?
Yeah. Well, I guess you know, as you get closer and closer, you start focusing that training more and more on what the event is. And I guess with the wild, I would think be the vertical. I mean, it's in the name, right? Like
100%,
each
yeah,
event has a vertical 1600, 3000, 5000. So I don't know, the rough math is for every 10K you're running, you need to be doing like 500 meters roughly, more probably. On those focused, probably on those long runs, those like focused, maybe back to back or, 3 days in a row, long run type of trainings, you want to be going out and doing that vertical. And also the train, I mean, you've seen the video there. It's trails, but it's not like your classic, like New Zealand Great Walk Trail. Like it's pretty rowdy. It's going to be relatively technical. You're not always going to be seeing where your foot's going, so you're going to want to be super confident with your trail running, your off-road running, and then you've seen a lot of people using poles, and everyone, as we touched on with Mal, it's you're out in the backcountry, you're pretty remote, so you got to be self-sufficient. So you're going to be carrying that gear. So making sure your gear's dialed in, and I don't think you need to be running with your pack with all your gear in at every run, but those key sessions when you're going out and you're running, like, the vertical and the terrain, like, you want to have the gear with the pack. And if you're going to use poles or you're not going to use poles, like just getting used to those things, because poles are amazing if you're used to them. They're just a waste of time if you haven't trained with them. So, I think that's something you could never, you can almost never start training with those things too early. Not obviously every run, but on those dedicated, long runs and stuff.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is it's about building up to simulating the event. Obviously, that's kind of what we're sort of shooting for and what the event's going to look like. And
because it's quite different to a lot of races. I mean, Tim, who we're going to talk to next, probably will tell us how it's quite similar to a lot of races and stuff he's done, which is why we have him on, right? But for a lot of people, they're not probably doing a race that is requiring that much gear, has that much climbing, and is on terrain that difficult. So it's going to be, there's going to be a build up there for sure.
That's good.
Obviously, anyone with the bigger the base you have, the bigger foundation, you can channel that and point that towards those the things that you need for the wild pretty well, relatively easily. But it's still there's a lot of moving parts, and I think like ultras are like that in general. I always looked at them as like a big exercise in problem solving, there's all these different things that you've got to like make work together. So the wild definitely presents all those things that make a fun time. So
and I think my key tip for it is, hey, enter now, book yourself in, organize yourself, commit to it now, and then you've actually got 5 months of actually, I'm heading in this direction and building up to simulating that. And then you've got to get your ducks in a row. You've got to communicate with your family. You've got to figure out a bit of routine and when I'm training. I've got to get my body sort of organized. Think about this sort of next month or 6 weeks or so as a bit of pre-season training. Actually go to the gym a bit, do some strength type stuff, and that'll really make a difference for your running when you do go long. So commit to it, book in that entry, get fired up hopefully, and then get Grant on board and he'll help you out to simulate it, have some fun along the way.
I think definitely if you there's nothing that's going to get you committed like parting with a little bit of money and committing and telling your mates that you're doing this full-on race.
Good stuff. Right, well, let's get Tim on the show. Tim has been waiting patiently. Tim, come on in. You are reporting live this evening from Wellington, is that correct?
Yeah, kia ora team. Good to be on board.
Good job. So you're one of the event ambassadors. So I think Mel reached out to you and you've got a pretty good thing going along about adventuring and missions in the mountains and things like that. So tell us about your background and adventures, running, all that sort of stuff that you've done in the past.
Yes, so I guess my background in adventure started pretty early with my whānau. We started, I started as a sailor first and foremost. And so mum and dad were both teachers, and dad built a number of keel boats. And so we would spend pretty much every school holiday sailing on these keel boats. And so I got a taste. Yachting is an adventure, and so I got a taste pretty early on of adventure, and they were really good at instilling that sense of adventure. And so later on down the track, I guess I come back to a subject that you and Mel were talking about, and that's the coast to coast. So I got into a bit of running, got into a bit of riding, and the first road bike that I had this little sticker on the side of it saying official bike of the Spates coast to coast. And so that kind of planted a seed, and I'd seen Steve Gurney pop up once a year, every year on the news, having just won this amazing race across the South Island, across the main divide. And so that looked so appealing. And so I spent a bit of time as a multi-sporter, did a couple of longest days. And I think you'll probably relate to how that, well, for me, that was my real introduction to mountain running with the Deception Minga mountain run.
Yeah, which is backcountry, isn't it? There's no real trail. There's trails here and there, but it is backcountry. You're adventuring and you've got to look after yourself. All those sort of things about adventure, that's where a lot of people end up starting, don't they?
Absolutely. And I think being surrounded by those amazing peaks on either side as you pop up over Goat Pass, that basically, that and the training, I guess we had the Tararua in our backyard, which made for really good hill training and leading into the coast to coast, and also the Tararua Range, which has it's actually got a route called there's a race called the Moka Moka Manta, and that course is in a lot of ways really similar to a lot of the coast to coast run. And so in training for the coast to coast, there's runs like that in the backyard. And so yeah, and so I guess that got me into running, and we then had a daughter, Ruby, and multi-sports are fairly antisocial based when you're training for 3 different disciplines, and so the natural discipline to sort of hone it down to for me was running, and for a lot of people, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. It's just simple, isn't it? It's time efficient. When you've got family, you can get out, you can get round the block in half an hour, and you feel like you've done something pretty solid. And that whole training for the wild, the simulating these events in your backyard's where it's all about, isn't it? And exploring what that's about. So you're based in Wellington, and we talked about in the intro about this SK Traverse situation in the Tararuas. Tell us a little bit more about what you've done there and some of the adventures you've had in your backyard.
Yeah, so the SK Traverse, now Grant is very familiar with this also. In fact, just before I did my first SK, Grant and Matt Bixley had become the first, I think, the first people to do it unsupported along the main range from Putara in the north all the way to Kaitoki. And so the SK, for those who aren't familiar with the Traverse, is basically the main range. It basically started as a Trampers Challenge back in the 1960s, where trampers from different tramping clubs had sort of postulated the idea of doing this multi-day tramp. It visits 5 or 6 backcountry huts as you traverse the main watershed of the Tararua all the way from north to south. They postulated doing this in a weekend as a weekend challenge, and so there are all these fit young trampers from the Tararua Tramping Club and I think the Wellington Mountaineering and Tramping Club, who would tell each other lies on the train on the way out there after work on a Friday, in the bid to be first to do this challenge in a weekend. And I think it was achieved early in the 60s, and then it wasn't until I think it was 1995 that a gentleman called Colin Rolfe, with a bunch of the Wellington Ridge Runners, who were the sort of the mountain running tribe of Wellington, in support along the way, managed to cut that weekend challenge down to a sub 24, and he came in well under 24 hours. And so I guess that became the challenge if you're a mountain runner in Wellington, but also further afield, who wanted a big, hairy mountain running challenge, where the support, if you're doing it unsupported, is all on your own back, then you can't really get anything better in New Zealand.
Yeah, how good. So you've done how many, is it 3 different versions of it in under 24 hours now, after sort of those trampers in the early days trying to do it in the whole weekend and not be late for work? What have you?
Yeah, so I guess I caught a bit of a bug after I followed in Grant and Matt's footsteps, and also friends Chris Swallow and Lawrence Pigcock, who had also done it just before Grant and Matt, I believe. And so once I'd done the main range, there are a number of different routes. Well, three different routes at the time. The main range, which is sort of it's the granddaddy. That's definitely the hardest to go under 24 hours on the main range. And then you've got the valleys at the other end of the spectrum, which basically follows the river valleys of the Ruamahanga River, the Wahine, and the Tauhera Nikau, all the way down the range. And that in itself is still a formidable challenge. And then in between, you've got this sort of untracked eastern side of the range that leads off partway down the main range. And it's actually a route that Sir Graham Dingle made famous back when he was a teenager by running the bulk of it in, I believe it was 18 hours, when mountain running wasn't even really a thing. he made it a thing. And the Tarn for me was my favourite because it, unlike the main range or the valleys, a large proportion of it is very much untracked, and these big gnarly peaks up through the sort of middle of the range. And so you're up there and you feel pretty remote.
Yes.
So, sorry, carry on.
So I can see why Mel has got you on board as an ambassador. Basically picking up exactly where he left off in terms of, right, let's get adventure in the backcountry. Let's fire a few people up. Let's go and do some adventures and do some missions. So what are you most looking forward to about the wild this December? And have you got your entry in as well? I should also ask that too.
I think that was one of the first things I had to do to sign up as an ambassador. No, I got.
You're committed. You've got the sign off from the family.
Yeah, I got my V5 5000 entry in the moment I had the option of entering. So I got the sign off of my family. My wife's actually going to come down and join me. So she's going to. The last time we spent any time in Arrowtown was when I was down there to race the Revenant, and it was in a beautiful place, and I was looking up at all of these peaks in the surrounding area, just wondering when I could actually get up there. And so when Mel approached me about being an ambassador, it wasn't the first time I'd heard about the wild. Actually, when Mel was doing his million feet in a year challenge,
yeah,
he was passing through Wellington and he needed somebody to take him up a local hill. And I think he was pretty pooped at this stage. It was getting to the pointy end of the year where he was having to get hopefully get some easy climbing in, and he talked to the wrong person. And so we actually headed up Mount Matthews in the Rimataka Range. It's the tallest peak in the Rimataka, and we picked. Everyone will tell you that most of the time you don't get a view off Mount Matthews, and most of the time when I go up there, I pick my weather and there's beautiful views. But we kind of booked this weekend in miles in advance, and sure enough, there was a lot of rain in the forecast as we were driving out there, and the river coming back was a much bigger challenge to get over than going out. But it was on that run that Mel floated this idea, this dream of his, to get this amazing loop in the backcountry behind Arrowtown as this big loop race. And I love loops. I love it's a great feeling to come back to where you started while having been on a massive adventure. So when Mel asked if I'd be an ambassador this year, I had a job interview to get through, but subject to that, I didn't hesitate.
Yeah, good. So good to hear that you got some history with it as well, and go back to sort of before, as it was still in the hey, I wonder if we could pull this off situation. So pretty cool to be able to line up for it and go and have a crack at it. So what are you doing to prepare for this event? What are you doing to kind of line up to make sure that you can actually enjoy yourself on this adventure, rather than, I mean, these courses bite back if you're not fully prepared, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I've always possibly been over prepared for most of the adventures that I've gone into, just because I want to enjoy them.
Yeah.
And so for me, I discovered early on in my endurance career that if you trained and then had a race and then went and partied for the next few weeks and then sort of let the training fall by the wayside, then it was always a very steep climb to get back up to that fitness level.
Right.
And so for me, like fitness is pretty much a way of life. So over the winter season, I tend to just try and keep it fun.
Yeah.
And keep a big base underneath me so that when it gets closer to an event, I can then use that base to have some more specific training in my weeks leading up to it. And I'll actually, closer to the time, I'll actually work back from that event to structure my my routine leading into it, having a lot more event specific training. But I guess at the moment, I think this year I've averaged 91k a week, and you're looking maybe 2,500 meters of climbing average a week. And so just like to keep those hills in my legs. And it also means that over winter, for me, the real fizz about having this fitness is being able to get out on adventures, and that's what keeps it fun. And so over winter, I like to once a month have something on the horizon, some sort of adventure where I can get out, other than running around the neighbourhood trails, get out in the backcountry, into the places that I love, and if you're fit for that, then it's super fun.
Yeah, good stuff. That's great advice, isn't it? Have some fun, and then book that adventure once a month, and get out there and challenge yourself, and just continue to be fit, and then all of a sudden you can turn up to something crazy like this V5000. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Tim. It's absolutely honour to have you on the show tonight, and looking forward to cheering you on across that finish line come December.
Fantastic. Cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk soon. Cheers, Tim. Good job, Grant. How's that running up and around the hills of Wellington?
Yeah, I was having some flashbacks, some nightmares of the Tararuas when he was talking there on the SK range. It is yeah, I mean it's similar, but like I maybe more gritty, like not as Queenstown looks like a postcard, like running on those hills, and then I imagine running the Tararuas, and it's just like it's so gnarly, like it's so intense. So yeah, if anyone that's coming from the Tararuas, those people will find running around Airtown easy. I think it's such a tough place to run. It's awesome, like it's really really cool. But yeah, I was just thinking about that then when Tim was just telling all those stories about the Tararuas, and it's good country, hard country, but yeah, great place to train for something like the Wild for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, we're just going to bring Mel Law back into the show here. Mel, there we go. And so just to wrap up, Mel, still here. I think we had 500 entries that we're going to try and get up tonight. We must be up to the 400s by now, I'd imagine.
I haven't seen the emails coming in, but you never know.
I'm sure they are. No, that's right. So obviously people need to enter. They need to get on board. They need to sign up. They need to commit. They need to sign up to their goal as well, don't they? Get and spread the word, as Grant mentioned. But is there anything else that you want to share in regards to the event? Things that people need to know that at this stage of the build-up?
No, not really. I think just re-emphasize that we are trying to build a bit of a festival around this. So it's an opportunity to have a genuine long weekend in Arrowtown. Come down a couple of days early. We've got some stuff happening in the lead up. We've got the likes of Tim Sutton talking about talking about some of their adventures with a Q&A session with him and Alistair McDowell. Also taking part. That's on the Thursday evening. The one thing I should mention, of course, is that the event is owned and organised by a charitable trust that we set up, the Wild for Nature Trust. I don't do anything unless it's got the word wild in. And we are heavily involved in rewilding work, native habitat restoration. So 5% of the entry fees go into a separate bank account specifically for that work. So we also have on the Thursday afternoon, we have an opportunity for people to go out into the hills behind Arrowtown and join in some wilding pine removal, which is much needed in the area. We do that before we then go back in and plant new natives. So yeah, it's one of those events that's it's community organized, it's community run, it's not for profit, and yeah, we just try and keep it as grassroots as possible. And I think the feedback we got from the inaugural event last year was that we managed just that we one of our trustees, the adorable Sean Collins, he who's one of the few finishers of the Revenant, amongst other things. Sean runs his own event company up in Auckland, and he's our race director this year. And his strap line is professionalism in jandals, which I've always loved. It certainly describes what Sean does, but it's very much what we're trying to do with the Wild as well. As make it a professionally organised event, but keep it fun, keep it grassroots. Yeah, it's jandals, not stilettos. You know.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Excellent. Well done. So good.
Fun vibe.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Mel. Well, well done. All the best for the next week. And you've also got a roadshow coming up as well. How do we find out about that? What's going on there?
If you go onto our Facebook page,
you're heading around the country, I believe.
Yeah. I've got doing a few events around the country, just talking about the Wild and giving the people the opportunity to find out more about it and ask questions. So
good. It sounds like an opportunity for you to It sounds like an opportunity for you to go and run some sort of trails, catch up with Tim, and get some of that efficient vertical meters lined up as well. I may be sneaking in a few peaks as I go around the country. Yeah. Maybe taking the opportunity to explore some new terrain. Yeah. Good stuff. I hope you get a chance to get out with Grant, guys, and add some. Was it 15 vertical meters to his weekly total? That guy doesn't run anymore. That guy doesn't run.
It's 15k and about 30 vertical meters.
Okay, sorry. I've undertold you there. Yeah, good stuff. No, that's awesome. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Mel. And Grant, just final thoughts to wrap up?
I really wanted to touch on Mel with the trust. So that was awesome that you talked about that, Mel, because I was curious to hear a little bit more about that. And then, I think if people are thinking about doing it, then get after it. There's even more. I actually forgot about the shorter events, Mel. So there's even more events than what I thought. So there's loads of options for people. And if nothing else, then you get to hang out in Arrowtown, and there's the Fork and Tap you can hang out at, or Tap and Fork.
And we do have Altitude Brewery on board as a partner as well.
There you go. If you're short of reasons, then you've got a good brewery.
Free beer at the finish line. There you go, Grant. That's talking your language, surely.
No, I think if people all the feedback, still chat to loads of people that are doing those events, and last year was nothing but good feedback about it. So I think Mel's done a really good job. So if you're thinking about it, get after it.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, that's great advice. Well done, team. Well, look after yourselves. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully you've got something out of that, and all the best for your training, and we'll catch you in episode number 2, which is going to be in a month or so's time. Cheers, team.